Coach Tecklenburg, another back-to-back trips to the state dual championships. Going into tonight, you thought you'd ever have Cedar Rapids, Jefferson, or Dowling. When you learned you had Dowling, are there any kind of flashbacks to last season at the state tournament at all?
Well, a couple flashbacks. Last week was my first flashback, thinking we just wrestled these guys in a really tough duel that could have gone either way, and we knew how dangerous Dowling was, and I think Cedar Rapids Jefferson saw how dangerous Dowling is. When they match up against teams, they can beat a lot of schools. Absolutely, last year then Flash popped up in my mind too, because we're looking at a team where we really wanted to finish on a high note with duels last year, and to lose to them in a really tightly contested duel down at state duels, that makes you hungry. But just the fact that our kids came out and performed hard against them last week, that just makes you nervous. And we just visited with our guys all week about being prepared for both teams. I think on paper people might have thought, hey, Jefferson's going to come out of this, but we also knew that Dowling had a very solid team and could very well win that, which they did.
Does it speak to the strength of your team? Because the duel did not start out the way I'm sure the coaches didn't plan it out to be, but it kind of, once 106 came, it kind of seemed to change the momentum. Is that how duels have been going this year, or is that something just tonight we saw?
No, we've had a few duels that have kind of gone back and forth. We'll wrestle some teams and really have a good difference in score, and then it might be close the next time. It's all these matchups, and it's momentum. I mean, you look at heavyweight, you look at Jake Ryan and winning that match at the end, and that's a huge swing. That was a 6-point win for us last week. Then you lose that. That's a 9-point swing in that duel. Instead, he goes out, gets that decision, we keep closing the gap. Even Ben Wilson loses a tight decision at 220, but we got pinned at 220 last week, closed the gap. Blake Anderson gets pinned last week, loses a major, closing the gap. We just talked to our guys all week about whoever we're wrestling, close the gap and widen it if you can, in terms of victories and wins. So, yeah, we've had a few duels like that, but it seems like when our guys get on a roll and we start getting those falls, we really feel that momentum, and that helps, and we saw that tonight.
Rolling into districts, they're going to be here at Johnston as well on Saturday. What was the message to your athletes after a big duel win tonight to get your whole team down the state wrestling tournament, but getting those individuals are very important for Saturday?
Right, two totally different animals. It's a relief to get your team down there, for everybody to experience that, but the individual tournament is a totally different situation, and now our focus shifts. Our focus shifts now to prepare for next two practices. Are going to be making corrections and preparing, feeling good, and getting as many guys down to the well as an individual. Because again, we know those are two very different tournaments. They just happen to happen at the same time, more or less. So it's a shift. It's a mental shift. It's something we learned from last year, and I think we kind of pulled some things last year, can make some corrections from how we approached it last year, and really we want to see our guys be as successful as we can. In both realms.
What do you think the difference is between this team this season compared to last season? Because this season it seems like the team has really been kind of pieced together throughout the season.
Well, there was probably higher expectations on last year's team simply because of what we had in our arsenal. You got guys like Shane Vaughn and Henry Pohlmeyer that were big point getters last year, and some other guys as well. And then coming into this year thinking that we had a couple seniors at 220 and heavyweight that just decided wrestling wasn't going to be their thing this year. And we had to take some younger guys, a sophomore at heavyweight, a junior with no varsity experience at 220. And all those guys did was just work really hard, fill in the gap, and get better all year. And I think so this year's, it's rewarding last year, but it's more rewarding this year just because of the type of kids that we had to kind of piece together, like you said, and get a winning product out of. And I think our path was more difficult this year too. I think getting through Jefferson and Dowling is a tough path, and because we knew how balanced they were. So I couldn't be more proud of those guys in the way they've kind of filled in the gaps. We have great senior leadership, and I think that's what really stands out is when you got guys like the Chazak twins every day in your practice room just hammering and hammering and hammering and not letting anybody take a day off. That makes a huge difference too.